Hi everyone, welcome to the June garden tour. It's a beautiful summer evening in the garden. We have been working hard. Things look a lot different than they did last month, so come on with me and we'll show you around. Well, the first difference you might notice from the May garden tour is that all the nasturtiums and the cool weather flowers are gone from the hill. We had a couple weeks of really high temperatures that took those out, so I pulled everything out and have been planting like crazy. So first off, let's start here at this garden arch. One thing I am so excited about is the sunflower. Now this is a volunteer sunflower, and I think last month it might have been way down here. This thing has been growing like crazy in the warm temperatures. And right before we started our garden tour, I came out here and I noticed it just bloomed today. It's absolutely gorgeous. Sunflowers are one of my very favorite flowers. They're so easy to grow in the summer heat. And I actually think this one is about 10 feet tall, and it just bloomed. I just noticed it right before we came out to shoot the garden tour. So I'm so excited about it. So I've just been tying it up to this garden arch. This is the Nocturne Arch by Gardener's Supply. And it's super, super sturdy, so it's holding the sunflowers. And I'm also growing some watermelon. Remember that video we did a while back on growing watermelon vertically? So I've got two of the sugar baby watermelons planted here from the Melon seed collection. And they're starting to develop little baby watermelon. So I'm very excited about that. Watermelon absolutely love the heat. And if you think you don't have space to grow watermelon, try the sugar baby. It's a nice, smaller, more compact variety, and it grows absolutely beautifully vertically. So stay tuned because I will be doing a video on how to support the watermelon on a trellis. Now over on this side of the trellis, I have some cantaloupe from the Melon seed collection planted, and it is growing even faster than the watermelon. And I've been tying it up here with my favorite little stretchy tie tape, like I showed you guys on last week's container garden video. And I am just so excited to have watermelon and cantaloupe growing up over this arch along with the sunflower. Now, if you remember a while back on the spring garden series, we planted some squash in this garden bed right here, and we planted it on tomato cages so we could grow it vertically to save some space. Now I want to tell you guys, the squash that I planted from transplants is, I think over here, this squash here, which is actually a lot larger, is a little squash seed that I just popped in the ground during the video, and it is growing even better than the transplant. So if you haven't yet planted squash, it's not too late. Pop a few seeds in the ground. They love the warm weather, and they will grow just beautifully for you. So this is one of the, I believe it's the crookneck squash from the Spring Garden Seed Collection. And here we have, oh my goodness, I just noticed, look at this. This is a zucchini. This is the Black Beauty zucchini. This is my very first zucchini of the season. I'm so, so excited. So if you guys want a power producer for your garden, you have got to plant some squash, because you will get a ton of vegetables from it. You'll have plenty to share with your family and friends. And I would imagine this one will probably be ready to harvest within maybe 3 to 5 days. Now, one thing about squash, I get a lot of questions about that my squash is only producing male flowers and not female flowers. What do I do? Well, head out to your garden and hand pollinate. Now, the male flower, let me just show you guys real quick here, is just a flower with a stem attaching to the plant. When you see a female flower, it actually has a little tiny fruit attached to it, like this one here, although it's even tinier when it first comes out. And if this fruit gets pollinated, which this one did, it will continue to grow and mature for you and be ready to harvest. But be patient, because the male flowers always come out first, and then usually about 5 days, maybe a week or two later, the female flowers will arrive. Now on the other side of the arch here, I have some California Wonder Peppers, one of my very favorite peppers from the Pepper Seed Collection, and they are starting to develop. So we're going to be having ripe peppers on the grill before we know it. So pretty, so beautiful, a delicious, really thick-walled pepper, turns red when it's ripe, and is so, so yummy on the grill. And right next to it, there's one of the banana peppers. Super, super delicious. We also have some basil in there, so we'll be grilling up some peppers and basil. And then one of the things I'm the most excited about for the summer is the cucumbers. A lot of you guys are growing with my cucumber seed collection, And we have 3 or 4 different varieties of cucumbers in here. The lemon cucumber, Boston pickling, a couple other of the cucumbers from my cucumber seed collection. And here's one of those cases where we have lots and lots of male flowers. Lots of flowers on here, but no females yet. So I'm very excited to get the female flowers and to get the cucumbers to start producing. Now, if you're growing cucumbers, you do want to grow them on a trellis. They like to vine out, and you can save a lot of space by growing them vertically. And here I just have a really simple TP trellis made out of tree branches, and I actually stuck them inside of a tomato cage just to give the cucumbers some extra support. Then I've been tying up the cucumbers as they grow. Now in this cage here, I have a Golden Jubilee tomato, one of my very favorite kinds. It's beautiful and sweet and orange when it's ripe. And this is a super sturdy cage made out of concrete remesh. You might remember a couple of years ago, this is where I grew my beefsteak tomato that turned out to not be so giant for the giant tomato contest. So I'm hoping that this Golden Jubilee grows nice and tall to fill this cage, and it's really off to a great start. Actually has a couple little tiny tomatoes on it. So this is going to be an absolutely beautiful, delicious tomato. One thing I am really excited about the hill this summer is making a lot of use of vertical space. So first of all, I told you guys I'm growing on this trellis here, the watermelon. I also have a lot of the ladder mesh trellises that we made last summer. I don't know if you guys remember those. So let me come on over here and let me show you. These are super, super easy to make, very inexpensive. You can pick up these long pieces of ladder mesh at your local hardware store. You might have to ask them for it. But each one of them, I think, is about 4 to 5 feet long. So what I did is I put them in the ground and then just pounded in a pole here for stability. And then I attached the 2 pieces of ladder mesh here with a cable tie. And then we're growing some tomatoes over it. This side we've got a cantaloupe growing over it, and it really makes good use by growing up and not out, so you can get a lot more vegetables growing. Now on the edges of my garden beds, I've planted the red and the white profusion zinnias. I don't know if you remember this from last summer, but they're a small, compact variety of zinnias. All America Selections winner. Bright red, a beautiful, lovely white, and I cannot wait till they bloom because they give a bright pop of color to the hill. So the plants here I just put in a couple of weeks ago. I started the seeds indoors. So hopefully by the July garden tour, they'll be blooming and we can enjoy that bright pop of color together. Now, a lot of you have been asking what kind of tomatoes I'm growing this year. So let me just share with you what I'm growing right here in this garden bed. First off, on the ladder mesh trellis, this is the large red cherry from my tomato seed collection. I'm so excited about this one. This actually grew over the winter here in Southern California. I almost took it out because it did have some cold damage, but I pruned it back and I'm so glad I left it in because I'm getting some tomatoes on it. So this is one of my very first ripe tomatoes from this plant. And there's a lot of little green tomatoes on here and a lot of flowers too at the top of the plant. And what I plan on doing with this is just trellising it over this ladder mesh and using this as a support. So far it's working really well. So moving down the line here, I have the Chef's Choice Green. This is also an All America Selections winner. I really do love growing the All America Selections winners in my garden because they're very productive, and you can find out more about them over on their website. I'll put a link in the video description. But this is a new trellis to me, which I'm very excited about. Gardener Supply sent this to me to try out. It's called a tomato ladder, and it's a super, super heavy duty tomato trellis. It has a V shape to it, which really helps protect the stem. The stem just kind of nestles right in here. And it will hold over 100 pounds of tomatoes. So you can see how heavy duty this is. And of course, you guys know I love red. So I'm really excited to have this in my garden. And it's supposed to just cradle the tomatoes here and provide them with a lot of support. So very excited about this trellis. Now, this is a brand new trellis to me also. I picked this up at a local garden center, and I just love the natural look of this wood trellis. This one is a whopper. It is 8 feet tall. So I chose a large plant to grow in here, a plant I've been wanting to grow actually for several years, and that is a tomatillo. This is a purple tomatillo, and I did not grow this from seed. I grabbed it from a local garden center as a transplant, and I cannot believe just in the few weeks that I've had it planted, it has grown by leaps and bounds. And this is actually a little seedling that's popped up. I think this might be a tomatillo as well, I'm not sure. But I am looking forward to having some wonderful salsa from this plant. We'll probably end up grilling some of these tomatillos and making a nice fire roasted salsa. So definitely stay tuned for that. A lot of you have been asking about recipe videos, so that might be something that we'll have to include. This little tomato plant here is also a new one to me. This is called a yellow apple, another All-America Selections winner. And from the pictures I've seen, the tomatoes actually look like a yellow apple. So I thought that would be a lot of fun to grow. And I love yellow and orange tomatoes. They're the sweetest. So I can't wait to see some new tomatoes from this plant. So this one I just have your traditional tomato cage on here. But what I plan to do as this plant grows is to actually stack 2 tomato cages on top of each other. I have a couple more red ones laying around my garden here. So I'll just invert it, cut off the tongs, and that'll make a nice sturdy, taller tomato cage for this plant. Now along the fence here on the last garden tour, there are a lot of poppies and cool weather flowers. I took all of those out and I planted sunflowers all along here. So we already have some that are growing and getting ready to bloom. I started some directly from seed here, and I also transplanted some I started from seed indoors. So super excited about that. I've always wanted to have a big border of sunflowers all along the hill here. So next month again, make sure you come back because they'll probably be in full bloom then. Now this area here is actually one that I'm not super thrilled with how it's growing. It's been shaded out. We just cut some trees back up above us, so it's been shaded out for quite a while, and I feel like the plants just kind of got stunted and are really not doing that well. So I actually just started some brand new cucumbers from seed up above in some little seed cells. So I'll be growing those and then probably transplanting a lot of these. We have had a lot of problems so far with spider mites. See how this leaf here is really spotted? That early heat wave really brought on the spider mites. They like the hot, dry weather. So I think they just kind of got to these plants, and these are not actually doing that great. So always make sure that you start backup plants just in case some plants don't work out, because it does happen. So right behind me here, I kind of have the same situation going on. These cucumbers got a lot of shade early on, and they're just not really taken off. So these will be replanted as soon as my brand new cucumber plants grow. But the beans are looking good. These are the Royal Burgundy bush beans from my bean seed collection. I love these beans. They are so beautiful. You got to get a look at these flowers here. They are so pretty. I've got some little tiny beans coming on. So these beans are purple on the plant. Once you cook them, they turn green, and they are super, super tasty. Beans are a great thing to plant all summer long because they grow fast. Go from seed to harvest in about 6 weeks. Beans are another one of those vegetables that you can plant all summer long. When the temperatures are nice and warm in the summertime, you can just pop seeds right in the soil and plant them every couple of weeks. That's called succession planting. That way you get beans all summer long and you're not harvesting everything all at once. So another ladder mesh trellis here. Got some watermelon growing up and over that. It's going to be so pretty once that all gets filled in. Over here, I've got a Golden Jubilee tomato and a Mar Globe tomato. Those are both in my spring garden seed collection. So this hill is going to be full of tomatoes, watermelon, tomatillos, and sunflowers, and one other little project that we've been working on. Let me show you. So we actually have a little bit of a project going on here. I traditionally have planted tomatoes along here, but as the tree above has grown, they've gotten shaded out. In the past couple of years, they just haven't done too well. So Camera Guy is actually digging out this garden bed here. He actually dug out the little retaining wall that we had and is sinking it down into the ground and making it a lot more sturdy and just lining it up so it looks nicer. And this is going to be the site of my new herb garden. So I plan on doing a couple of videos on planting an herb garden right here. So it should be a good spot for that. Some sun, some shade, and it'll be really nice to have the herbs really close to my kitchen door, which is right over here. And you can also see I've got one more ladder mesh trellis here. Got a beautiful black-eyed Susan growing, which is one of my very favorite flowers. And then over here, I planted a scarlet runner bean. A couple scarlet runner beans, and you can see they're already starting to climb. These are the most beautiful bean flowers you've ever seen, and the beans are so, so tasty. So there definitely are challenges to growing on a hill. Everything kind of falls down, but I am very excited about having a lot more vertical gardening space this season. So let me know what you're doing to grow vertically in your garden, and if you have any good ideas for little simple trellises, let me know that too. So now let's head down the hill and I'll show you around the rest of the garden. Now, a lot of you have asked if I'm still growing in the veggie pod, and yes, I am. I've got the veggie pod right here. And what I've actually been doing with the veggie pod is using it as a spot to kind of hold my plants until I find a spot for them in the garden. So you can see a lot of these really do need to be planted. I've got a couple tomato plants, some pepper plants. This is a butternut squash, so I may not end up transplanting that because it's getting pretty large. Some of the purple basil from my herb seed collection, and some eggplant, which I'm super excited about eggplant this year. So it's worked out really well. I've just popped plants in here as they've outgrown their little peat pods or their little transplant pots. Then I've been moving them from this spot into a spot in the garden. So far, so good. And moving on to the Smart Pots deck here, the strawberry crate towers are doing really well. This is a tower I planted last year. So you can see the strawberries are nice and mature, growing very well. And we've got a lot of ripe strawberries on here. Oh my goodness. This just looks so tasty. And if you watched our container garden video from last weekend, I showed you how to make a strawberry crate tower with a Smart Pots crate liners. It makes it super easy. And you can see how delicious and tasty these berries are. It's going to be a good year for the berries. So here on the Smart Pots deck, we've got a lot of things going on here. One thing I'm super excited about is this squash here. A lot of you have been growing along with me in the container garden series. It's been so much fun. Here is one of the 15-gallon Smart Pots. I really like this with handles. This spot gets shade and sun throughout the day, so I've been moving this around depending on where the sun is, if I happen to be out here, so that it gets more sun, because this is I think it's a crookneck. Yeah, it's a crookneck squash, and I've got a couple of little baby squash on here. So I actually just noticed this one here. I've been watching the one over here all week long, and I didn't even notice this one, but it looks like they both got pollinated. They're definitely getting larger. I'm really excited about our squash this year. So I do have just one squash plant growing in this 15-gallon container. You could probably get away with two, but in here I just have one. But you can see I've got some lettuce growing underneath the leaves here. And that is a good strategy to plant shade-tolerant vegetables under the leaves of larger plants. Lettuce is a cool weather vegetable. It doesn't always do well in the heat, but if it has a little bit of shade, it's going to grow that much better in the summer. Now here in my little purple mini raised bed, this is the CaliKim Smart Pots. I planted a bunch of little squash seeds. Again, kind of as a little holding area, and I'll be transplanting these to other areas of my garden. But I think these are all scallop squash. I have got the white scalloped, the yellow scalloped, which are such a beautiful variety of squash. A little bit smaller of a variety with scalloped edges and look absolutely beautiful on the grill. Now back here, this is a larger Smart Pots. This is the larger sized of the raised bed. The round purple raised bed makes such a color pop in the garden. And in here is where I plan on planting my salsa garden. I got a little bit of a beginnings of this, so I'll probably be coming back and doing a video. I put the smaller version of that 8-foot cage. This is a 4-foot, and this is a patio choice yellow tomato, so it's a smaller yellow tomato. Be perfect in this 4-foot cage. I went ahead and popped a couple sunflowers in here and some pepper plants. All I need now is some onions and cilantro, maybe a few more pepper plants, so stay tuned for that video. So behind me here, I have a cattle panel arch trellis. If you want a super sturdy trellis to grow heavier vegetables or fruits like watermelon, butternut squash, cattle panel is the way to go. This is 2 cattle panels made in the shape of an arch, and right now I'm growing scarlet runner beans on it. Scarlet runner beans are one of my very favorite beans. Beautiful red flowers. The beans are super tender, can grow quite large. We've already been harvesting off this a couple of times, but let me see if I can find one to show you guys. Okay, I should have been out here yesterday picking these because look how big this bean is. You want to pick it at about 6 inches when you're going to eat it. Here's a little tiny one right here. When it gets this big, the beans get really tough and stringy, but you can, let me just open this up here. The beans are beautiful. You can dry them and then use them like you would refried beans. They're so pretty. Aren't those lovely? The scarlet runner beans are in my bean seed collection. They're so easy to grow. I mentioned we've already been having a lot of problems with spider mites. You can see the browning and speckling on the leaves. So I've been using a couple of things. Captain Jack's Dead Bug Spray works when you spray it right on the bugs, but spider mites are so tiny it's hard to see them. You can see that speckling on the back. So what I've been doing with the beans is just picking off the leaves. They grow back so quickly. So that's a good idea to do if you have spider mites. I've also been using a combination of neem, peppermint oil, and rosemary, testing that out. So I'll be coming back and doing a video on that to talk about how to control pests in your garden. So if you want a beautiful ornamental plant to grow in your garden, scarlet runner beans are definitely a plant for you, but you do need to provide them with a large trellis for them to grow the best. Two other different tomato varieties here I'm growing. This is the Midnight Snack. This is an absolutely beautiful tomato. Look at the purplish color on here. So pretty. Loads and loads of tiny purple, greenish spotted tomatoes. And this is going to be a really delicious tomato. So here I just have it staked up against an old sunflower stalk. And really looking forward to trying those as they get ripe. Now the one right next to it here, Joel, remember Joel from the Spring Garden series? He gave this tomato plant to me, so I'm very excited about it. This is called the Solar Fire Tomato, and it is a more heat tolerant variety. It is a determinate plant, which means this tomato will grow and produce all of its tomatoes in about a month's time, and then the plant will die off. So for a determinate tomato, you don't want to do a lot of heavy pruning on it. You only want to take off the branches and the leaves that might be yellowing or spotted for disease, but you don't want to trim off the suckers or prune a lot off the bottom. You just want to let nature take its course, and I'm hoping this will be a very productive tomato this year. A couple of months ago, we did a video on growing watermelon in containers. Planted some cantaloupe and watermelon from the Melon seed collection. Would you look at it now? It is growing absolutely crazy. Here I have the inverted tomato cage I was talking about a little earlier. One tomato cage stuck in the ground, one inverted, and then cut the tongs off of the top to make, it's probably what, a 7-foot tall or so tomato cage. And look at how crazy these plants are growing. I'm actually hoping to do a video this week on tying these up, so you guys have a little bit more information on that. And we planted the sugar babies right here from seed, and they're looking absolutely fabulous. And this is a Smart Pots, I believe it's a 15-gallon, and there's going to be a lot of fruit in here, so I'm very excited about that. So let me know in the comments below if you're growing melons from my melon seed collection, and let me know how they're doing too. A lot of you joined us for our Friday firesides the past couple of months, and I really appreciate that. This is where we did them. Camera guy and I would sit here and do our live streams, and it was a lot of fun. He's gone back to work now, so we've concluded that, and hope you guys are all doing well and enjoyed that. It was really fun to spend that time together. But right behind me here, we planted a lot of peppers. I have some eggplant going and some okra. Let me show you the okra. Okra is an absolutely beautiful plant. It's not one of my favorite vegetables, but I am committed to trying it again this year and hopefully picking it when it's a little bit smaller and a lot more tender. But it is so pretty. This is the red burgundy okra. This is in my Spring Garden seed collection. What a beautiful plant, you guys. I planted these seeds directly in the garden bed probably about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago now, and it is growing like crazy. I did put one inside this little mini tomato cage. They do grow to be fairly tall, so I may end up kind of feeding this one over into this cage or staking it up. So let me know if you've tried okra, and if you have any good recipes for me to try, I'd love to hear about it too. One of my favorite things about summertime is growing peppers. And here I have the California Wonder Pepper once again, and this is the perfect spot for it, because this whole planter here is in bright sun all day long, a super warm spot. The peppers love it. And remember the tomato ladder trellis I showed you a little bit ago? That's actually just 3 sections of this. And so you can stack it high for tomatoes, use it for smaller plants such as peppers and eggplant. And again, it acts as a little cradle here to hold the peppers. I'm so excited about my peppers this year. I have all kinds of colors of peppers growing behind me. It's gonna be a fun grilling year and a very colorful one too. So on that melon video we did a while back, not only did we plant sugar baby watermelon on the trellis, but we also planted the Jubilee watermelon, which is a full-size melon from my melon seed collection. This one is supposed to get to 20 to 30 pounds. So my plan is to let it trail back along this planter. Maybe it'll trail even all the way around, give it a lot of space, and hopefully we'll be harvesting some full-size melon from that later on in the summer, so stay tuned. So around this side here of the fountain planter, I've got some eggplant. Now I am also really excited about eggplant this summer. Let me know what kind of eggplant you're growing. I'm trying a couple new varieties, and I didn't get my eggplant started from seed this year, so don't feel bad if you had to buy transplants at the garden center. I had to buy a couple myself. This is a Japanese eggplant. I believe it's called Ichabod. It's a longer, more skinnier type of eggplant, but I'm getting little flowers here. So hopefully that means eggplant is not too far away. And I'm also trying growing it here on the little ladder trellis. So it'll be really fun to see this grow and produce. Now on this side of the planter, I have a variety of hot peppers from my pepper seed collection. And it is so much fun to come out here and just pick what you're gonna eat for dinner. And what I love to make out of the hot peppers is a pico de gallo salsa. Wow, look at these. These are looking so delicious. Look at that beautiful orange color. So pico de gallo is a raw salsa, fresh tomatoes, fresh peppers, onions, cilantro. It's just so much fun to come out here and pick what you're gonna eat for dinner right from the garden. A lot of you have asked about the living wall. We planted the trees behind us in our living wall project about 1.5 years ago. When they started out, they were just about 2 feet tall, and now they're probably well over 10 feet. These are called Japanese privets. They've grown super, super fast, really filled in the fence line behind us, starting to bloom, which is really bringing in the bees. So we're really enjoying the nice green backdrop here against the fence. A camera guy and I built this little raised bed last summer. It's super, super easy to build your own raised bed, so go back and watch that video. But in it, I have another one of the 7-foot tall trellises. Really loving the wooden look this summer. It's just really natural. I'm really enjoying it. And in here, I know it looks so, so tiny right now, but I have a giant tomato. It's gonna be a giant tomato. A lot of you know our live stream moderator, Cliff. He sent me the seeds, and this is called, I'm sure I'm not saying this correctly, a Herzegovac tomato. And he's grown it before. It's done very, very well in Idaho, and I'm hoping that it does well here too. So this I actually just started from seed maybe 8 weeks ago and transplanted it just last week. So stay tuned, because I'm hoping later in the summer to be harvesting tomatoes from way up here. It's gonna be fun. Well, do you guys recognize this area? I decided to pull everything out of here and start over with a blank slate. If you watched last month's garden tour, you saw that it was just filled with nasturtiums just spilling over the side. Well, the heat took those out, and so I am really excited to be completely starting over here. There's something about a brand new start that's just so refreshing. So let me tell you a few of my plans, and I'd love to hear your ideas as well. So I'm hoping right here in the middle to plant a tomato plant. Not quite sure what kind yet. I do also have a Chef's Choice black tomatoes. That might be a good one to pop in here. I also have I believe it's called a Sweet 100. It's a cherry tomato, and it's supposed to just be super, super productive. So probably definitely a tomato plant right here. Now over on this other red planter, I'd really like to get some butternut and spaghetti squash planted. Now, since we do have such a long growing season here in Southern California, I can get away with planting a lot of these vegetables late in the season, even here in late June, because we pretty much have warm weather into November. So it'll be really fun to see how this all comes together. But basically what I did here is I tore out all the drip irrigation. I'm in the process of redoing that, kind of updating it to the little tubing with the built-in emitters. So it all will run like clockwork. And I'm also going to be replacing the strawberry crate towers. These have been here for about 5 years. They're kind of starting to break down. Look at that, what piece just broke off. So, and strawberries really only, they are perennials, but they really only grow very productively for about 5 to 6 years. So I probably will be replacing some of these plants and making brand new strawberry crate towers with the Smart Pots crate liners. Now this was the very first sunflower to bloom this year in my garden, and it's a volunteer plant, which means somehow the seed got in here from last year. I didn't plant it. It grew up on its own, and I believe this is the Lemon Queen sunflower. I think it just looks so pretty. It's branching out and really adds a nice splash of color to the garden. So let me know what color of sunflowers or what variety of sunflowers you're growing. Now another idea I had for this space is also to do something with hanging baskets. So I want to put some type of trellis in the back here and then do some hanging baskets. Smart Pots actually has now a basket liner made out of the Smart Pots fabric. So I thought that would look really pretty back in here, maybe with some plants hanging down like cucumbers, pop some flowers in there. So let me know if you have any ideas for what I should grow in my hanging baskets, and then stay tuned for a video too. Back in this planter right here, I had a mint plant growing, which I usually cut back a couple of times a year, and I went ahead and cut it completely back. So it'll be fun to see if it actually grows back or not, or if I might have to pop some new mint plants in there as well. One thing I did want to mention is a lot of people ask me about these planters. These are actually, it's a galvanized steel pipe that's cut into lengths and then painted and just stuck in the ground. So it does work as a container to contain plants in this area, and really does add a lot of visual interest. So it's one reason why I've grown mint in one of these for so long, because mint is a very invasive plant, and you really want to grow it in a container so it doesn't spread to other areas of your garden and invade your garden plants. So let me know if you have any ideas for this area, what you think I should grow. I would love to hear about it. Now remember how I always tell you guys to grow backup plants? Well, this is where I keep a lot of my backup plants. These are seedlings that I've just popped in the CaliKim 5-gallon Smart Pots. Just in case one of my plants in the garden dies, I have these here to take their place. So I have Mariglobe, I have some squash, some watermelon, cantaloupe, different varieties of tomatoes that I'm already growing, just extra seedlings that I had started inside. It doesn't get full sun here all day, so they're growing pretty slowly, but it's a great spot to have backups just in case I need them. And behind them here is the thing I am probably the most excited about this year in the garden, and that is the blackberries. These I pruned back over the winter time, and they are just growing crazy this year. I think it's going to be my best blackberry year ever. These plants are loaded down with blackberries that are not yet ripe. Although I see my very first ripe blackberry. I don't even know if I can reach it here. That blackberry is mammoth. Now you know blackberries are ripe when they pull very easily from the vine. Let me see if I can reach that. Oh, I guess this one is ripe. Oh, this is absolutely beautiful. So really looking forward to a lot more blackberries to come. We love to eat them just on yogurt in the morning. Hoping I have enough this year to make some blackberry cobbler or something like that, and maybe a topping for an ice cream. Well, thank you so much for joining me for my June garden tour. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope things are going well in your garden. Please comment below and let me know what you're excited about growing this summer. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.